All right, hi guys, my name's Darren. I'll be a moderator for this session. Today's topic is about deeper and wider market efficiency for the masses. So before we begin, can you guys just give a round of introductions about yourself, what you guys are doing in the space, and like just introductions about yourselves?
Sure. Dan Gunsberg. I'm the co-founder of Hero Network. We're building a decentralized derivatives primitive for future swaps, options, pari-mutuel markets, something unique, all on Solana. Probably the best way to think about it is what we're doing is kind of rethinking the fabric of the derivatives landscape globally, $188 trillion market. And thinking about how you build a decentralized CME, decentralized OCC, Options Clearing Corp, and all doing it on Solana.
Great. Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Schmidt. I'm head of strategy at Talos. Talos is a bilateral crypto trading platform. We provide full end-to-end workflows for traders, primarily in CeFi, including connectivity to 30 to 40 different market destinations, both exchanges and OTCs. Everything from pre-trade, trade to post-trade, including settlements, both in crypto and fiat. My background is primarily in traditional finance before this. I worked for Goldman Sachs. I worked for a couple different hedge funds in New York and London. That's me.
I'm Norbert. I'm basically a founder of Synthetify. We are aiming to give ability for people to mint synthetic assets directly on Solana, so they don't need to use bridges or even access different asset classes like commodities, indexes, or even stocks directly on-chain.
Hi everyone, my name is Anton Bukov. I'm co-founder of One Inch Network. It's a network of different protocols and the most well-known aggregation protocol. Please excuse me for being in the middle of the trip.
All right, thanks for the introductions. Given that you guys have all built products that are all targeted towards the retail market, so just wanted to ask a quick question here. Like, what do you find is the difference between like building for retail users compared to like building for institutional users, for example?
Yeah, sure. Definitely Solana is super early, so most of the money is coming from institutions and VCs. So this is probably like primary market for us right now. But definitely like the NFTs are helping out with bringing more people from like not even financial space to the system. Right now, let's say we are focused on mostly unlocking the liquidity, and this is targeting like the financial guys. But once we reach like some adoption level, then definitely we're gonna also like target directly a retails. And thanks to the Solana, they don't even know that they are using a blockchain. This will be like super layer abstraction and basically an instant settlement.
Yeah, so we are more on the institutional side for sure. We are more B2B to see eventually. So we tend to power more of the medium to largest institutions that are then themselves connecting via their customers to retail. So our primary responsibility is, I'd say, safety, soundness, and performance of the platform. And in doing so, we help them serve their end clients and provide that experience to end retail customers.
Yeah, I think that when you're building for retail, you're way more kind of UI, UX focused. And once you start to get like into the guts, and like in our example, like building out a kind of more of a base layer derivatives primitive, you start to think about things that are that if you were kind of just thinking about retail, you never think about. And these could be things like credit, guaranteed settlement. Like how do you guarantee settlement on chain? How do you implement things like market maker protections, or basically some of the elements that exist in TradFi that you do need to see and you want to see crossover. The other element that I think is something that I think from the worlds that are these two worlds kind of merging together is really the KYC element. And definitely from the institutional side, you are not going to see, I think it's going to be very difficult to see institutions put large amounts of capital, if any, into decentralized networks without some type of identity or base kind of KYC being done. So like I think Civic was on just on the last on this last panel, and they're doing something very interesting, like that we're going to be implementing into Hero Network around KYC. And I think that you have to still have those elements, even in some light touch form, in order to really think about getting institutions to participate. And at the end of the day, like we look at crypto as a whole, it's right now it's just under $3 trillion in total market cap. But if you look at decentralized derivatives, I mean, you're talking about a open interest that is somewhere in the order of just under $200 trillion. And so if you kind of take a step back and look at the forest of the trees, that's really what the opportunity set is and really what we're going after. And I think that if you're thinking about building towards institutions to help build your liquidity and participate in your protocols, then you're going to have to think about those things in order for it to happen.
Yeah, I can add that we in 1inch started to build for B2C because we were building initially for ourselves, and we.
Oh.
That was it.
I think
We'll never know.
I think he dropped off there. I think we'll just continue on without him. I think for now, another question that I had was like, given that you guys just mentioned about KYC and stuff like that, so like, curious to know like, how do you guys find this whole KYC issue? Like, I've noticed like some projects have like a ban on US countries. So like, is this an issue that you guys are facing as well? And like, how does this affect the adoption of your platforms?
Yeah, as I just said, like, I think there's this kind of balance. Like, we're definitely, at the outset focusing on what I would consider more of a traditional semi-institution, also really on operators who, just like Justin said, it's very much of a B2B2C type of play. And I have yet to interact with an institution or a professional trading firm that has said that it's okay to not have KYC at your entry points to your primitive. I think it's a requirement, and I think what's going to happen is if you don't have it or you don't think through ways to have it implemented either at your base layer or at the application layer, is you're constantly going to run into this issue of truly being able to capture a much wider global audience coming to your protocols. And you just I think what's going to happen is you're going to end up with these two kind of markets. You're going to have this lit world that has some level of like an evolved form of KYC that networks will be participating in, and then you're going to kind of have this like more or less of a black market that will exist that may suit most of the some parts of the world really well, but it all depends on who is coming to your protocol and who's participating. So.
Yeah, it's a fantastic, interesting question. On our platform, everything's bilateral, so all the counterparties are KYC'd with each other. And then I think if you talk about what's happening in DeFi and on chains, the institutions are absolutely going to require compliance with the financial crime rules, whether it's KYC, AML, CFT, et cetera. But I think the engineers and the lawyers need to get together and figure out where it makes sense in like the tech stack, right? So if you're in like the highly performant part of the matching engine at the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or whatever, like they're not doing KYC checks like at that like very base level. It's actually it's happening somewhere higher up in the actual stack. Like you're onboarding the customer and then they sort of get the okay and that kind of thing. And so with DeFi, to be seen, I think, but I think there's definitely potential for KYC to be applied at some higher level, and that you have the base layer that's very highly performant, like obviously Solana, very performance sensitive, and then somewhere we figure out where the KYC fits in there, but definitely the institutions are going to 100% require that.
We are building basically directly on Solana, so let's say KYC is not an option, especially like in our field, which is synthetic. Right now, it's let's say not a problem, but once we release like stocks and that kind of stuff, then definitely having this centralized, this might be a problem. So for us, definitely a solution is decentralization and censorship resistance, right? And that way, let's say the KYC is not part of the problem, but definitely for like institution, then yeah, there might be like additional layer on top of Synthetify to bring this KYC, right?
Got it. Given that you guys are all building, you guys are building on Solana, you guys are building on-chain projects as well. How do you guys think that this brings more efficiency to the markets? For example, like, does having everything on-chain is really beneficial to the public, to retail especially? Like, how do you guys think about this? Like, what kind of data do you guys provide for people to make the best decisions possible?
Well, okay, so for us, like, you know, I think about it as like when we take a step back and look at what we're building, my background's been in proprietary derivatives trading for 20 plus years, and was very active on multiple exchanges, a member of the CME, Chicago Board of Trade, and whatnot. And if you kind of think about how those exchanges existed pre being public, or it was very member owned and member governed. And like if you owned an exchange seat, you had some level of vote and participation in who sat on the board of governors and whatnot. And so once it became public, that all changed. And so I think what decentralization on one hand does is it gives us an opportunity to kind of rethink that and evolve it back to a place where if you just simply replace token ownership, stake token ownership with with what used to be an exchange seat, and that token ownership is giving you governance, it's giving you participation and rewards, and now you actually have something that looks like something that existed 30 years ago and actually becomes very useful here. I think a second point too, and one of our investors, who the president of the company is a former head of futures and options at Citi, and that guy that I've become close with, he made a great point and said that post 2008, 2009, that what the regulators really did is they actually ended up concentrating risk because they didn't really know what to do with the calamity that happened, and they ended up kind of vesting risk and market risk into much smaller amount of banks. So you had this thing that it was somewhat disintermediated, but it kind of mushroomed up and then collapsed, and then suddenly you had 6 banks that were controlling everything. Like, the amount of systemic risk that creates for a financial market is massive. And so I think that, thinking through these ways to where you now can extract away some of those intermediaries and some of that control of market risk and spread it out very wide again, I actually think will benefit the stability and security, and start to mitigate the systemic risks in the market that actually currently exist today.
I agree with a lot of that, certainly. I think what's happening is we have this new infrastructure, and we're rebuilding a lot of the tools that we had from TradFi, and we're doing it in a way that is extremely innovative, but this diaspora of innovation where people are kind of almost trying everything. Everything is almost getting funding right now, and so people are trying all these different things. And we've had, finance where there are these rules, and there are rules for reasons, and there's obviously new cool stuff from crypto and old valuable knowledge and wisdom from traditional finance, and these need to come together in some capacity and hopefully be complementary to each other in the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. This is not going to happen in the next 2-3 months or anything like that. But there need to be new structures created to think about what it means around systemic risk. Right now, crypto, $3 trillion cumulative asset class is not systemic. When you have, a major clearinghouse that might go down or something in traditional finance, that's systemic, right? So the regulations are there, I think, generally not to be super oppressive, but they're there because they don't want to create, broadly speaking, it's not to make it be difficult to do business. So, I think, tying this back to Solana and what's going on there, I think the interesting aspects here are this is part of this innovation diaspora that's happening where this chain is designed to be performant. It is very, I think, well suited to things like financial systems, like DeFi, like payments. For Talos, we support, we're a software company, so for all the institutions, we support various different types of tokens. We obviously support Sol itself. But in a very real way, there's still, I think, this continuing innovation that's happening, this continuing design, building things, and we're still going to be figuring out, I think, for some time what this means in terms of the actual integration between traditional finance and crypto.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, it's still a greenfield. We were talking backstage because Justin's background at Goldman, we both came from traditional finance, and we were kind of, just joking about the kind of some of the both the cultural aspects and the level of experimentation and advancement that's happened in the last few years in things that cross over and kind of where you and I are standing, which is kind of at this intersection now. What a rude awakening so many of these banks are going to be in for when they kind of see the power of what even mild disintermediation looks like, and and culturally the space as a whole is very kind of will rally around kind of what is more this newer technology, and so something where a balance is going to end up needing to be struck in order to kind of move forward in a frictionless way.
I think it's also hits to the main point of DeFi, which is giving a fair chances. Your bank account shouldn't matter how much you got paid or whatever, and bringing this transparency because of the blockchain, I think it's really important. Most of the guys are trading, in dark pool. Bringing this on blockchain, whereas everybody is getting a fair chance, it really brings more competition, fair market, and more efficiency, right?
Yeah. One more point I'll add too is I think the incentive structures around decentralized networks, some of the things that we see today, I think are, maybe being done a little naively, and it's one of the beauties of creativity and experimentation going on at the same time.
Yeah,
and some things work, some things don't, and you have this massive community of users that effectively is willing to be a test pilot sitting on rocket ships, right?
Yeah, the ecosystem is still tiny compared to the whole market structure, right? Everybody's experimenting, but once something clicks, right, it's getting really big ridiculously quickly, right?
Yep.
Got it. Last question that I had for you guys was that what do you guys think is some ways to really drive adoption to the space, not just to your project specifically, but what are some things that you see that can be used by other people to continue driving more users to your protocols, to the space in general?
Lending, without a doubt. I think if you I know people if that first wave of DeFi kind of 1.0 is about lending. That I can tell you, I mean, we all have friends and family in who's not in crypto, but if you can go find the majority of the world, and even at the institutional level, pensions, governments, it doesn't matter. The real capital in this world craves yield, and so you can think about something when we think about Hero Network, it's such a wide opportunity set because it's everything from derivatives on in-play sports to derivatives using to create option structures for yield harvesting and for structured products and things like that. And so, but man, if you go and tell somebody right now that you can give them 6% interest on their retirement money, they will worship the ground you walk on. And let alone, we all know the yields that are available in crypto today. And obviously, as more capital gets into the space, it's going to get compressed. But again, the whole token concept, the incentive structures, the way things are designed, it is such a breakthrough that I think eventually the banks are going to have to get there because, what's a good yield now in the institutional world? 2075 Aramco bonds for 3.5%. That, in crypto, it's many multiples of that, and with a limited amount of risk. I mean, you can go to FTX right now and lend out US dollars for somewhere between 10 and 20%. And last August, when leverage was up and things were really popping, you were looking at getting 80 to 100%. Now you're getting 80 to 100%, but behind that is a basis trade that is really yielding maybe 250%. And so there's a lot of gravy there. And so I think that lending actually is the #1 inroad for inroads into crypto and into DeFi as a whole. And at that application layer, it's so crucial that you have the right platforms that are helping to drive that.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with Gunny there. I mean, all of the yield gen, whether it's staking or lending, is bringing in the entire credit side of traditional finance and opening their eyes to what's happening in crypto. Just like I think NFTs are bringing creatives and influencers and artists onto blockchains and having them be a part of the ecosystem as well. And then I would just say zoom all the way out. I was speaking at Credit Suisse last week, and you come to events like this, and the average person you meet here is just unbelievably knowledgeable about crypto, and they know so much, and they're so well connected. And then you go to sort of the other side of the spectrum at one of these traditional institutions, and there's still just a lot of education and time that's going to be required for the continued sort of mass adoption of, I'd say, broader people coming to crypto.
I think like the easiest example is like just putting a money into a crypto, like to the bank. Because right now, if you go like to European bank or Switzerland, you are getting like charged, basically a negative interest, right? And I think that is ridiculous, right? And I think this is like, at least like, you don't need to interact with any of the protocol. Just keep the money in like account or wherever in MetaMask or Phantom and use the USDC like a US dollar, right?
All right. Thank you, guys. I think that's all the time that we have. I think thanks for your time, and thanks for your insights, guys.
Thank you.